What up, everybody? Welcome back to Nashville Unsigned, aka the News Podcast. We are covering all things digital and music news for the independent community. So we are your source for all things news that isn't fake and that comes through the internet. So I'm hanging, chilling like true villains with my business partners over here, Patrick Larney, Jared Rigsby, and Nick Brown.
What's up, everybody?
So let our viewers know and listeners who we are and what role we play in Nashville Unsigned. So I'll let you take it off, Nick.
Yeah, definitely. I'm Nick. I'm the website administrator. I keep that running and adding new content to it, make all sorts of updates going on there. So
updates on the back end.
Yeah, if you guys have any cool ideas, feel free to submit them. And yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, he makes everything look good on the site, makes everything function. You got tech issues, he's probably taking care of it. You probably got an email from him a time or two. So I am Amber Stoneman. I do social media marketing, networking, so in and out of all those networking events that you guys are also going to. Also, our Unsigned series, so doing a lot of event coordinating, which is so much fun. Sponsorships, reach out to us. We've got packages on the site. Just saying. Jared Rigsby.
Yeah, and I'm Jared Rigsby. I'm a writer around here, SEO specialist, and digital marketer. Ron, yeah.
Nice.
Hi, my name is Patrick, and I take care of the video and the branding and the design for the website. I have a background in music as an artist and a label services company focused on launching independent musicians' careers. So basically, I make things look pretty from the aspect of trying to help independent artists raise awareness of their projects.
So let's kind of talk about, I'm a new artist in town, independent community. Where do I go to find information about resources, networking events, live music, who I need for photos or whatever? Where do independent artists go for that information?
Well, I mean, basically, I think most independent artists are just Googling it, and then, from the top 700 things that come through, they're kind of blindly shooting in the dark of which one, can help them out. We're very specific to an area right now, which is Nashville Unsigned. And it's a great community that just spending a little bit of time with us, I think you see a big improvement in raising awareness of your project.
Yeah, and providing any types of services from SEO, digital marketing, social media, feeding in a network, even doing consulting of your career and where it can go and how to monetize. And he does writing and reviews and bios. So, and then Patrick does a lot of things like music videos and branding and websites as well. So pretty much like within this team, if we can't execute a project for you guys, we know somebody who can. Right. So Nashville Unsigned, helping independent artists just find their resources. So we are going to roll into our topic of the day, which is a pretty popular two words that are popular but boring. So I don't know how that happens at the same time, because if you're the popular kid at school, you're probably not boring. I don't know. Net neutrality. That's what it's called. Net neutrality. So like I thought when somebody told me that what it was, I was like, oh my God, girlfriend, totally know what you're talking about. It's so awesome. Like, I'm such a believer. Can't even believe that you know about it too. It's kind of like Netflix, but better. So I totally thought that it was
kind of like Netflix.
But I thought it was a streaming platform or something for movies. So what is net neutrality?
So, to put it shortly.
Thank you.
We
got ADD minds of the world, so thank you.
Basically, right now we have equal speed to everything. Like, everyone gets, whether you're streaming or downloading, you're getting the same bandwidth speed as the guy next door. Now, taking net neutrality away means that these ISP, these internet service providers, can charge more for fast lanes on what they deem takes up more bandwidth. There's a lot that goes into it. There's a whole huge debate about it. But it's kind of been in the works for the past, 10 years?
Yeah. And who are internet service providers, aka ISPs? Like, who are they?
So that's your Comcast, your Time Warner, at&t, Verizon. Basically the people that bring the internet to you.
So you're pretty much telling me the TV packages that all those service providers or phone packages that they have they're packaging the internet like that.
Yeah, it's not quite enough for that. No. So now they're trying to compete with Google, the success of these online streaming services like Netflix and Hulu. They want a piece of that pie.
And
Piece of that pie.
Yeah.
I like to eat, feed the baby. So, Patrick, tell us like what that means for the independent artist. Like, what does that look like for the independent artist?
Yeah, I think that the level at which your message effectively reaches its audience is really important, especially for an independent artist. In terms of a musician, try this to explain it to musicians, because I know that's a big part of our audience. There's an audition, and everyone has to play their guitars at the same volume level on their amps. Whereas if the volume levels were chosen for each guitar player, then some guitar players in the room would have an advantage of being heard precisely because of the volume that they're allowed to produce. And so essentially that's what the throttling the content on the internet could be. It makes some people's voices louder and some people's voices
And
softer.
that's based on money. They're paying
which
for
is
it.
something that is most independent artists don't have.
So it's
a resource that most
visibility.
don't have. Yeah,
It's visibility for money. Is what's
it
happening.
equated, almost directly proportionate to what your backing is. I feel that major telecom used to rule the industry from AM to FM to cable TV, and that monopoly, if you will, has been compromised by the internet, allowing anyone with an ISP connection to distribute their content equally. Where I see the risk is allowing these ISPs like Comcast, Time Warner, AT&T, and Verizon to essentially be the gods of what moves through, policing or at least giving priority to some of the content that they want to deliver to you at high speeds, and kind of throttling or muting some of the rest.
I can honestly attest to my viewpoint on it, which is very important. Don't take my word for it. Get online, battleforthenet.com, gofcz.yourself.com, and there are plenty of other. If you use Google, internet, then you'll be able to research it and know what we're talking about. So do appropriate research to understand what stance you take on this. I can honestly say I think that it hinders freedom of speech equally. I think that it hinders that in a lot of different aspects, knowing our target demographic, our fans, our friends, our community of independent artists. This actually slows down speeds based on how much you're going to invest in your marketing dollars to these telecommunications companies. So, Patrick, with your skill set, which is video and branding and things of that nature, like tell us how net neutrality affects those things for the independent artist for video.
Well, sure. I think that, it's no secret that one of the most impactful media forms for a breaking artist is video. It's a fast food generation with the attention span of a goldfish, basically.
Right.
So nobody wants to read, a dissertation of text. And one of the biggest breakout things that, people are doing is a 3-minute video, an official music video. But bit-intensive media, such as HD video, is the thing that's going to be affected the most. We've all experienced trying to load a video and with a poor internet connection, and you get that spinning little, beach ball of death, and that completely ruins the experience, right? So if you're coming to the table at a disadvantage already, that's like trying to land a date and being ugly. You're already set behind.
Doesn't work.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest.
And so I think that being one of the biggest breaking points for new artists, there's an incentive for Time Warner, also under the same umbrella as Warner Music Group, which is a major record label. It doesn't take Stephen Hawking to connect those dots. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're going to push that content and the good experience of speedy delivery of HD video for things that benefit them, and probably, and that's a risk. Nobody's saying that they're going to be given the right to do that. They've all said, "Oh, we're not going to do that," but it's really kind of on a pinky swear at this point.
Well, telecommunications companies, let's just be honest, let's go through kind of the lifeline of a telecommunications company. Like they lose landlines. Let's just talk about that. They move into cell phones, but then they had TV, as well. We had TV packages that kind of lasted for a little bit. And we all know we watching Netflix and chilling these days, which is quite the term. I have the t-shirt for it. But yeah, so that's kind of the thing, Hulu, other aspects like that. But I mean, I even use Snapchat as a form of TV these days. Yeah. So they're losing money. They're losing momentum. Do we feel like it's a grasp at straws? Like this is a fish out of water thing right now? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of what we're talking about is sort of conjecture as to what could happen if net neutrality were to be repealed. At this point, we really don't know what exactly is going to happen. We can kind of go off into, the worst case scenarios and all that, but really, I think the ISPs are more wanting to get funds from the high bandwidth consumers. Have you guys seen that graphic that was going around? It was like Netflix is like 33% of the bandwidth on the internet. People streaming HD movies and all that.
That's actually really insightful.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge because, there's probably millions of people, streaming, Netflix HD video.
There's a reason they
for
have a t-shirt,
hours a
let's
day.
just say.
We've all heard of binge watching. I mean, imagine binge watching's effect on, bandwidth. So I understand what the ISPs are going for here. They, high bandwidth consumers are, they would like to charge them more. And as someone that doesn't use, too much HD bandwidth and all that, I could be down with that in a possible way because that, I highly doubt they'll lower my internet access, price, but, I could see where having, HD service, separated could actually be beneficial for someone that doesn't need it all the time.
So how does this affect, the independent artists going against a signed major label artist? So we all know Warner Music owns Time Warner or vice versa. So they're family, or at least they're having sex. I'm just saying. At least they're making babies. I'm just saying. Something's happening. I can feel it. There's a relationship. So these telecommunications companies have access into the music industry. They're all connected in some way, shape, or form. Right. So then how does those relationships with telecommunications affect independent artists to major label artists?
Yeah, I think that the biggest the biggest risk that I think that most people are afraid of anyway, and most of this is really fear-based, but fear-based is also foresight. You know what I mean? Sometimes. So I think that the thing that independent artists should be concerned about is the fact that their content, the experience of their content, can be compromised by an agenda to push the same experience, or at least the same media with a better experience for high speed or whatever. Like you said, Netflix or whatever is something that's being pushed through super fast right now, but it's also eating off of the plate of what used to be cable TV, right? So that's a competition. Now, if you have an ISP that's trying to lower that competition, and they already own the pipes that bring the internet to everybody, it seems like a pretty quick fix to getting back on the throne of what types of messages are being supplied to the public. So that could make things a lot harder on what independent artists feel is the only even playing field right now to get their message out. That's why independent artists are not racing after Comcast for TV or trying to get their own radio shows. They're doing podcasts. They're doing, they're using the internet because that's the level playing ground. That's where they can reach their public.
So how does Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Films, how do those platforms serve independent music? I know that we kind of discussed this a little bit, and you had a really good insight into how this actually affects how dropping the protection of Title II of net neutrality, how does that affect the independent artist in relations to Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Films, and those platforms like that?
Well, one of the most lucrative opportunities right now for independent artists is what's called sync licensing, and that is that you will get paid a certain amount of money for the use of your song in certain media deliveries, like a Hulu series or a Netflix series. If those experiences of those things are being slowed down, then not as many people are listening to it. And so the streaming royalties, the numbers of streaming royalties for sync licensing for an independent TV show that might show up on Netflix is not going to be as high.
Yeah.
And, artists today are not making, it's no secret that they're not making money from record sales as much as they are streaming or
they're
syncing.
running to syncing right now. And shout out to Whistle and Circina, two of our featured artists that are killing the game in syncing right now. And actually, Whistle was on 3 episodes of Orange is the New Black, so Netflix original. So that's where these artists are having breakthrough opportunities to A, get paid from a platform, and B, be able to get their music exposed. And of course, they're pulling in, like, they're getting exposure. They're pulling in all types of revenue from this. So that would be a fear of shutting down or charging higher rates for companies like those that are providing extra services to an artist.
Yeah, I think overall the streaming, just the bottom line of there's going to be less people streaming if they have to pay more to do it, right? The market is going to show that one way or another, and that's going to affect artists' bottom line, just straight up, like Spotify and that kind of stuff. And we're going to have to see how that, manages throughout the process, with those kind of platforms. And if you have to shift from there, or if you can keep plugging away with the streaming services, I think only time will tell.
Yeah, money's being made. Here's the thing about streaming. Money is being made from streaming. What happens is there are these black box banks, is what they call them. And when PROs, pro rights organizations, ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, Cobalt, whatever, is tracking the royalties to your music, if they can't find the person that the royalties belong to, they go in a black box bank, which ironically fluff the pockets of executives. So what I'm saying is, in this process, that is I agree with what you guys are saying. This the level playing field that's going on. So Nick, kind of tell us what emerging technologies would be affected by this or not affected by this. How does this affect innovation in the music industry if net neutrality was lifted or kept in contact?
I think the place this is really going to affect independent artists is the networks where they share their music right now. Uploading it to your videos to YouTube, getting your music on, Spotify, and it's streaming, and, the Apple iTunes store, and all these different little spots where you have access for people to find your music. I think that's where it's really going to hit people.
Like background music for Pornhub.
Exactly.
Because Pornhub is going after protecting net neutrality. Just saying. But anyways.
Those adult filmmakers, they have to find independent musicians
porn music. Bow chicka bow now, chicka bow now. Everybody with me. Bow chicka bow now, chicka bow now, bow chicka bow now.
Because I think that's where it's really going to affect people. If you have your own website with your own content on there, I feel like you probably end up being okay, because you're not going to be consuming that much bandwidth with your own personal website. But if you're on YouTube, and then YouTube doesn't work something out with an ISP, and they're consuming massive amounts of bandwidth, and all that, that kind of takes me back to why I think they're doing Google Fiber. I think they knew that this was going to be an issue to begin with, so they've already,
Clever.
they've already developed a backup plan for this.
Yeah, me
They're
too.
like, everybody come through us. We're going to protect the internet.
Yeah, because they're massive, and if there was to be some sort of slowdown on Google searches, that would be a serious issue for them.
Yeah.
But I think that's really where it's going to hit them, is the networks online, and I think that's the spot for innovation, though. I think new companies will come in, and there'll be new video platforms, new streaming platforms, music sharing, all that sort of thing.
Awesome. And so, Patrick, what about your perspective on a couple of things: independent artists, emerging technology, and how net neutrality could actually affect innovation?
Well, I think that independent artists look to emerging technologies to emerge themselves as well. We've seen it happen with YouTube. We've seen it happen with MySpace. We've seen it now. MySpace is not an emerging technology now, but of course, at some point, it was an emerging technology.
In the olden days.
Sure.
The olden days.
Social. I mean, Friendster was first, and then
we're saying demerging.
And so, because independent artists look out for that, I think that something that's kind of synonymous with emerging technologies also is that it's more and more bit intensive. That if you're, the future or what's coming, let's say it's 4K video that you can put online, or virtual reality, or whatever, that any of those emerging technologies are taking a lot of bandwidth, and that's what could be slowed down. You had talked about, Nick, you had talked about YouTube being, that possibly could be slowed down. I think portions of YouTube will be and portions won't be. Vivo, for instance, is some of the big major labels that have put together a playlist through YouTube's platform. But I think that, it doesn't take long for these huge data companies to figure out what they need to throttle and what they don't need to throttle. And sooner or later, the consumer that doesn't have a dog in the fight for an independent artist or whatever is just going to go where the experience is best.
Yeah.
And if that's Vivo, so they don't have to look at the spinning beach ball, then that's a lot of the market share for independent artists.
Yeah, so that's a great segue with all the social media references. So one thing that I feel, and that I've been placed in the role by my peers, is to handle this social media marketing for Nashville Unsigned. So I'm a firm believer in this day and age, if you're not annoying with your marketing, you will not break through. You will not be effective. We've been a little annoying, guys, especially on the Yet page, and I'm not sorry about it. But we have created our own community called the Unsigned Community. Go join on Facebook. Find Nashville Unsigned on there, too. And we're going to shamelessly plug Instagram, Nashville Unsigned, Twitter, Nash Unsigned, Snapchat, Nash Unsigned, and I think that about, Google+, Nashville Unsigned. You're welcome. So social media for independent artists. We're going to kind of talk about that for a second. How net neutrality lifting or not lifting will be affected by this outcome. How social media will be affected. How the independent artist will be affected. So we all know we have our feet in the ground. We love you guys. We have friends, family, community, all in the independent community. And you guys use social media for live streaming. You do your virtual tip jars now on live streaming. You sell your product. You create new fan bases. So you actually utilize social media to get your brand out there. So how is social media affected in net neutrality or lifting Title II of net neutrality?
Well, this, of course, would be conjecture to figure out the future of social media. But I did, however, read a recent article on Entrepreneur magazine about the trends to look forward to in 2018. And a lot of this revolves around like personal storytelling, like Instagram putting up the stories, like Snapchat, live streaming. That's going to be a big deal. If that bandwidth is cut, it could really pull the rug out from under these trends that are naturally emerging, especially if this happens kind of all of a sudden. Yeah. There's like a date that it kind of gets pulled. And then it's like everything that you look forward to in your business plan could be pulled out from under your feet.
Which is a scary thing for independent artists. It's a
scary thing, and it sounds scary to say it out loud, but
it's like getting stabbed in the heart,
kind of like getting
and bleeding out in front of everyone.
But
it does. It is scary.
It's gonna rock the market. People are gonna change their behaviors in one way or another. But I don't think it's gonna just destroy it. There's always ways to maneuver, and I think that's the optimal way to look at it. Is if this does go through, how do I maneuver around it? How do I survive and find opportunities within this?
So it is no secret. We're talking about social media marketing and how net neutrality lifted could affect social media marketing of an independent artist. So YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, emerging platforms like Spotlight, check it out. It's kind of cool. It's kind of your new age voting system, YouTube voting system. Pretty cool. Musically sold to another company for $1 billion, and it's starting to hit a little bit of decline, but Patreon, Snapchat. So all these artists use these platforms, for instance, Facebook, of course, has tons of money, significant amounts of money. Snapchat is declining. They're still making a lot of money, but when you're having to pay out to these service providers, these ISPs, for a faster lane of traffic with a lot of data that you're pulling in from, just everything, information overload. How exactly, what's your guys' opinion on how exactly this could affect? I mean, I see that it's going to Snapchat. If they continue to lose money, they may not be able to play in the same sandbox as Facebook anymore, which currently Facebook, Instagram, has pulled features from Snapchat.
Oh yeah,
So-
it's actually beating out Snapchat.
That's what I'm saying.
Instagram is, yeah.
So a place like Facebook could afford a fast lane, and unfortunately, this awesome platform like Snapchat may not be able to afford a fast lane. So what do you guys think? Is that going to take like a big hit on the artist visibility as well?
Well, I think one side of the argument that is coming for the dismantling of net neutrality is saying that they want investment in future innovation, and with certain regulations on the things that they have, there are investors that say, well, I don't want to invest in that because it's already got boundaries and borders. So if you open it, this is how they're pitching as the Freedom Act, that if you open it, then, well, now investors will put money into that because there's so much possibility. Mm-hmm. To me, I understand that argument. Where I differ for that is I believe that those companies, when you allow them to run everything, they kind of are in control. Then the money that they would have gotten is just used to absorb kind of upcoming technologies. Snapchat by itself,
Yeah.
I don't know who it was started by, or Instagram, let's say,
Yeah.
right? Instagram was started by something, and Facebook
Bought it,
right?
it up, yep.
Saw it in the rearview mirror and said that could be competition, so I'm going to absorb
Bought
it.
it, yep.
To me, I love the idea of the internet being an equal playing field where the innovation comes from the bottom up.
And the underdog has an opportunity, just like in the Unsigned community.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And I think that if what they're talking about with the opposing point of view is that the innovation should come from the top down, and I'm not necessarily, my personal opinion is I don't believe that that's where innovation comes from.
Yeah.
I think it comes from the bottom. So I would love to see, that money can still land in the pocket of those big companies by allowing the innovation to come up from the bottom.
Exactly. Awesome. So we also see a lot in Nashville Unsigned, and being super present on social media, and you being super present. Talk about the event calendar earlier. What? NashvilleUnsigned.com. We ain't mad at it. Go build a profile. We need you in our lives. So promotions for independent artists shows for their brand. Their shows is live music is one of the top resources of independent artists, merch and live music. So if net neutrality, the protection of that, is pulled away, does this affect people that show up at their shows? Could this affect people that show up at their shows? What do you think, Nick? With the promotional aspect of things.
I don't think it's really going to be that impactful, honestly, because, where do people find out about your shows right now? Most of the time it's through the artists themselves. They promote it, through social media and all that. I don't see that it would really impact that.
Yeah, I don't see either. I think you'd be probably safe in that lane.
I think the size of the information is either a venue calendar online or somebody's email list.
Yeah.
So that's a very, very low bit.
Yeah.
But what I do see it affecting is
Ding, ding, ding.
Applying the new.
Sorry, I was just waiting for the opportunity to drop the hat.
Yeah.
I'm just
I think that the place that it does affect is the backside of that, which is artists using technology to take that live show, and instead of just showing it to the 30 people in the room, maybe live streaming it or filming it and then putting it out, where the long tail of that 3 years later at 3 a.m. somebody is still watching that live show while the artist is sleeping, and so their music discovery is its reach is longer. So, but I agree with you. I don't think necessarily like getting people to the actual show is going to be affected that much by net neutrality.
I am going to disagree, everybody. Surprise, surprise.
Don't throw that hat down again.
Somebody just disagree. So I am super, super present on social media with Nashville Unsigned. With all the live events, we have a promotional strategy in place for live events, and most of it, I can honestly, we don't have a street team out there yet. Now we got a street team. Thank you, team Nashville Unsigned.
Yeah.
So we will have a street team. We do not yet. We do not post flyers. We do not do guerrilla style marketing. We only do social media marketing, and we're pulling in 150, 200 people in a show. And it is specifically off of social media marketing. It is no other. We've got a little bit of word of mouth, but for the most part, we are pushing through social media. So I do agree. I disagree. And the reason for that is because if these major platforms are having to pay more money to be able to get in the fast lane, and now it's surpassing the actual revenue of the company, and they're having to pick and choose where this goes, we may end up seeing stalls in social media where you're not getting information in real time. You may not know about a show until the day after the show. I'm just saying. So I do think that social media platforms will be affected. I do think these are the major key players of data that we're talking about. So if they're slowing down, if they're being put in the fast lane or fast or slow based on pricing, and their data, then yeah, this could slow them down. And being on the back end of social media, I see that I will face a problem, but I'm going to resolve it. I'm just saying. So we're going to switch it up a little bit, playing in the social media world and how it affects independent artists and how you guys promote online. Keep doing it. We love it. Again, submit to NashvilleUnsigned.com, build your profile. We ain't mad at it. Shameless plug. But Nick and Jared kind of have some questions for the both of you. And this is around e-commerce, big money maker for the independent artist. So e-commerce for the independent artist, how is it affected? How is it not affected with net neutrality?
Honestly, again, I think it's going to be similar to, like we were discussing before with the
They can't sell their branded dildos.
Yeah,
It's really going to take a hit in the dildo market.
Verizon has a really hard stance on logo
Branded
dildos.
Damn you, Verizon.
I think as far as like merchandise and that kind of thing, and you're talking about internet speeds, so maybe the payment process being slowed.
Yeah, I think it's
And
really
that's
going to hit
where it
those
counts.
HD videos.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
HD videos. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be more
If-
downloads and video streaming.
If it hits the customer, they're going to be like, "Hey, you want to watch your Netflix? Then you're going to have to get this extra $10 a month thing." Or
So how, this is a good little segue moving into websites. How does it affect an artist's website? Can it affect an artist's website?
yeah, it could if they were to lower the speed lower than what it is right now for people to access it. I don't see that really being a big impact because as a web developer through the age of telephones coming in to being where people see
He
the
means
internet.
landlines.
Landline.
You get your dial. What was that? The
Rotary phone. Rotary phone.
Yeah. No, but when that first took off and became a big deal, it was making sure the website or the page size, that making sure that was really low was a huge, like a huge deal at that time because the bandwidth was really low for mobile devices at the time. But now we've gotten to the point where it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even really impact it too much. But you still want it to be low. It assists in search engine results.
So artist websites typically have a lower bandwidth, is what you're saying.
Right now, it all comes down to where you're hosted at. You can actually get situations where you have more bandwidth or all that. It's typically not an issue, but we've got net neutrality right now, so everything's treated equally. So that Netflix.
I'm for equality.
Well,
Nick
if it
Brown.
becomes an issue too, you can always fall back to those standards. Be like, man, if my website's taking a hit, if I see in my Google Analytics, maybe I can redesign some aspects of it that don't take up as much bandwidth. Like, don't have that song playing in the background or that video that automatically starts.
Yeah, but
little
even
changes like
if
that.
you did have rich media on there, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal because
Yeah.
are you really streaming HD VR experiences from your website?
Yeah, is it like an hour-long movie?
24/7 to at least 100,000 people, or
Right. The only thing that I would love to interject there is that we're not talking about the risk being only affected by what the speed is and the bit rate, but also giving the censorship to Comcast and stuff. So if in the time there was somebody who who was it who did Cop Killer?
I don't know.
The tune. I mean, there was the huge thing with censorship.
Oh, it was Onino. It was Onino.
No.
Just kidding. Shout out Onino. Thank you for the theme music.
I don't remember who it was, but it was a hip hop or rap group a long time ago.
It was Public Enemy.
Public Enemy, there it is, right. And basically one of the things was the content of what they were saying. The freedom of speech became an issue. If you are Verizon or you are Comcast, there are ways to say, well, we don't agree with this, so we're going to slow it down. Because remember, if they're in control of the gates of what's throttling and what's moving through, it might not just be a speed thing. It could be a message thing, right? And when you start to give that control, that scares me a lot.
So we're kind of banking on a pinky promise right now. We're kind of banking on a pinky promise from the telecommunications companies. Is they're like, no, we promise we won't do this to the small underdogs like Nashville Unsigned that is hated upon by some major labels,
Right,
I would say. We
To Nick's
do become...
point, this went into effect in 2015, and there wasn't a big problem with the net before 2015.
But we weren't around in 2015.
Right, and that's true. National Unsigned was not around
We're
in 2015.
creating a little bit of a rift in the system. Let's just
But
be
I also
honest.
believe that the handover of... Yeah, I think we might have been around in 2015.
I believe so.
Well, we
It
were
was the
around
beginning.
under another name. Let's just be honest. Yes. We were around. We changed names a few times, okay? We had a few children that were outperforming.
Thanks, Obama.
Thanks, Obama.
But I do believe that that one of the reasons why this is coming to the table for bringing down net neutrality is because now we're moving into a place where people are not going to the majors as much as they used to. And has that happened in the last 2 years, 3 years? I kind of think it has. I really do believe that there's a huger percentage of the content that people are watching. Like Amber said, there are a lot of kids today, a lot of millennials, a lot of kids in high school or whatever. Snapchat is their TV. That's the competition. They're eating off the plate of these big ISP, content pushing companies.
We've all kind of grown accustomed to catering to our liking, and I just don't feel like that a large telecommunications company like Time Warner that owns Warner, that we could be possibly dabbling in their money, and I can guarantee you we are. But dabbling in their money, I don't doubt for a second that if we are a competitor coming up and they're looking in the rearview mirror, that they wouldn't like stifle the traffic coming into our site. I don't believe that the pinky promise would uphold at all.
Yeah, I don't either. I also think that one of the places where this could be affected is recommendation algorithms. If you like this, then you will like this.
Love it.
They're going to push their own material. One thing I am optimistic about, though, because I don't want to feel like such a pessimistic about net neutrality, is that I do believe that the cave-dwelling neckbeards of technology from the bottom, the 4chans, the anonymous, I don't believe that they're going, if net neutrality is dismantled and we do see this type of abuse, I think it's going to be a call for innovation that's going to erase it again. It's like water hitting a wall. It's not going to stop at the wall. It's going to try to get around it in one way or the other.
Yeah.
And I think that today's generation understands the internet enough to find a solution. So
Pretty
there
much
is
like Felicia always showing up at your house trying to sell you a cheeseburger, and you're like,
You're
no,
like, "Go away,"
Felicia,
but she still
no,
shows up.
Felicia, I don't want a cheeseburger. I don't want that old ass cheeseburger, Felicia. Bye, Felicia.
Until you just
Bye.
finally eat the cheeseburger.
Bye. Give me that cheeseburger. You already made it here anyways. No favors. No favors.
No favors.
It reminds me of Y2K.
Oh,
You guys remember
Sure,
that?
sure.
Y2K.
Yeah, I think we're like stockpiling food and freaking out right now. But then it's gonna go away, and then nothing's gonna really happen, and everything's gonna be okay, and it'll just fade into memory.
So you're an SEO guru. How does let's cover one more aspect. How does net neutrality, if we lift that, how does it affect SEO? So SEO, explain just briefly, because SEO is so broad. Let's talk about what the acronym actually is and what it is very quickly. But how could net neutrality affect that? SEO is all about skill set right now, but it could be based on not skill set, but how much money's in your pocket.
Yeah, I mean, this would be kind of hypothetical, discussing how you could be
Hit us with the SEO
hurt
first.
with your search results. But really, that comes down to Google. They're the ones that determine your placement in those search results, or whatever search provider, Bing, if you're Binging over there, or DuckDuckGo.
Banging.
They're the ones that determine what that order is. And if there were to be some fast lane on the internet, then yeah, I could totally see Google implementing something where those sites that are fast. I mean, they already do that. Really, if your site is faster, then you have preferential treatment in search results. There's a ton of different little factors that go into it, and that is one of them. Other than that, I it's going to be the search engines that determine where you get placed in those. So.
Yeah. So you're practically saying search engine optimization, aka SEO, can still exist outside of the net neutrality laws.
Yeah, if they were going to remove you from search results, then it would be Google that would be doing that.
Yeah. But how that affects the artist is SEO, we kind of do that, actually. We're synonymous for that, is we use our higher ranked SEO for the website to move these artists. We talk about them by that Midas touch, digital Midas touch, some would say.
Backlink.
When we touch that artist digitally, it naturally pulls up their SEO, right? So you're saying it's under Google, so it would not probably be affected.
I don't believe so.
Other than page speed from one element of all the stuff
again,
that goes
Pornhub.
into it.
And that's mostly with mobile devices. That's a larger issue with.
Yeah.
So I know this is kind of our last little thing about net neutrality and how it affects an independent artist. So we'll go around the table, true or false. Slower internet equals higher bounce rate.
True.
Equals less traffic. Equals less revenue.
100%.
All the true. All the truths.
Yeah, it's definitely true. Well, except for the revenue. Maybe, it depends on what you're doing with that. But,
Like branded dildos.
You
Like
get
branded
creative.
dildos.
Yeah.
Are you paying in American dollars or rubles?
Or rubles. Russia. We're on to you. How did you not connect the dots? So I mean, ultimately, go do your own research, guys. There are a few links that we want to give you guys. www, which is the internet, World Wide Web acronym, battleforthenet.com, gofccyourself.com, medium.com, unila.co.uk. Digital music news, consequence of sound. And do you guys have any other platforms or?
NashvilleUnsigned.com.
Of course. Actually, that's the number one.
www.nashvilleunsigned.com, and we don't want the www to stand for the world is waiting for the web.
Nice one. Ba-dum-bum. That's awesome. So thank you guys for hanging out with us. Like I said, find us on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Pinterest, Google+, LinkedIn. Actually, I'm not going to keep going. Spotlight, Musical.ly.
All the stuff. Find us everywhere.
We love you guys. Go build a platform. Sign up for our email list. We're dropping all things digital and music news.
I wish I had some papers to tap, like they do in the music.
Yeah, you're right.